dance for joy or lust or anger.
So welcome to Sensible Secondhand Reviews, a series where we look at practical and sensible cars that you can buy for a budget of between £1,000 and £5,000. This is a 2014 Audi A1 1.4 TFSI Sport S-Tronic. But is it any good? Should you care? Let's find out, shall we? So the first generation Audi A1 came out in this country in late 2010, continued until 2018 when the second generation model came out. I'm not as fond of the second generation model as I am of these actually. I prefer this first generation car. This particular car has a 1.4 TFSI engine with 138 horsepower and does 0 to 60 in about 8 seconds, which I can well believe. It feels actually really sprightly. Personally, I'd probably go for the manual gearbox as opposed to this S-Tronic, because this is a very similar gearbox to the DSG, and if you don't service these DSGs you have problems. But this car's actually got a really nice service history on it, so I imagine the previous owners were looking after it quite well. It's currently for sale at Ubax Auctions. Thank you again to Matt and George for allowing me to have a go in this lovely car today. It's only done 42,000 miles. The base engine when the car was launched in 2010 was a 1.2 with 85 horsepower, later supplemented in 2015 with a 1 litre 3-cylinder with the infamous wet timing belt with 94 horsepower. The 1.4s, there actually was one below this 138 brake horsepower version with 120, and then later in 2015 122 horsepower. There's a timing chain. They can be problematic sometimes. In 2013 this 138 brake horsepower model came out, and then that was actually replaced later on with 148 brake horsepower model, which had the 2-cylinder mode in 2015 when the car was facelifted. Above that there's actually a 182 brake horsepower version of that one with a timing chain. The same engine is in the, I think, the Mark II Fabia VRS. It's just one to sort of watch, I think. If you really want your performance in your first generation A1 though, you can either go for the S1 model that has 228 horsepower, or the very, very rare Quattro model that has 252 horsepower. There are also some diesels available, but as usual, due to controversial government legislation and all kinds of other reasons, we don't talk about diesels on this channel. So it's very smooth. I mean, I've driven a number of other cars from this platform, like the Seat Ibiza and the Polo, and also the Skoda Fabia, and this, for some reason, feels quite different. I don't know in this car whether we've got a different suspension setup, because there were 3 completely different setups for the A1. Even just the normal models, the SE, you've got different suspension from the Sport and then from the S line, but on the Sport and the S line you could opt for more comfortable suspension, which is what I would do. It feels very quiet. The noise, vibration, harshness is very well controlled in this. I can see why once you got somebody into one of these back in 2014 when this car was new and you went for a little drive in it, they might just fall in love with it just the fact that it feels very comfortable and very refined, whereas I'm not sure necessarily the other 3 cars on the platform would be up to the same sort of standard, but that's fine. You're paying a lot more money for one of these. Actually, these cars are worth a fair bit of money. This one is estimated to be auctioned about £8,000 to £10,000 in this condition, which I can sort of believe if someone was really after one of these, then that's what they'd be willing to pay for it. There doesn't be anything wrong with it particularly, which is good. It's a well-maintained car, clearly. Apologies for the background noise, viewers. We're very close to the A3 here. So I think this first generation A1 looks rather nice. You just wouldn't know from having looked at this. It's based on the same platform as the Ibiza, the Polo and the Fabia. I think as well they've done enough with the interior design, what we'll see in a moment, to differentiate from most cars and justify the higher price that they were asking for those back in the day. So yes, this is the Sport model. It's quite a nice specification. One thing I do appreciate about this as opposed to the S-Line that was above this is we don't have necessarily like massive wheels on this and really firm suspension. You could opt to sort of have the comfort suspension even on the Sport and the S-Lines. The SE models have the sort of standard suspension of all, and you could have those if you wanted it. I mean, I would personally not go for the really firm suspension. I'm not that sort of person, but some people like that, don't they? Sensible size of alloy wheels that look good but not too big. And actually, even the door handles and the mirror switches and things like that, and the interior door handles and things like that are bespoke. They're not necessarily just out of the Volkswagen general parts bin, but look different from the, you know, the Ibifas and the Fabias and the Polos, even though this car is based on the same platform. Instrument cluster is very nice, bespoke. Back in the day, if you put the key in, this touchscreen, sorry, this screen's not a touchscreen, this screen would have looked pretty good when the car was launched in 2010. By the time the car ended production in... Shush a second. That's better. By the time the car ended production in 2018, that would have looked rather old-fashioned. And we can see the controls are down here, which is, I suppose, quite sensible. It's a bit different from something like an iDrive in sort of BMWs, where the controller's down here. It's actually here, which is what more people would be used to. Dashboard is lovely, far, you know, nicer than the Polo at the time, the Mark 5, I think it was. It's in production at the same time as this A1. Nice steering wheel, controls in a familiar place for lots of one Greek cars, but this particular one has you know, this very nice leather, sort of idiot proof really. It's just to mute this if I can. That's strange. It doesn't want to mute. Oh, there we go. It's turned volume off. You can have a stop start off if you want. Puzzle light switches there. Everything just feels really high quality and well assembled. It's a shame that I don't get the same impression about the Mark II that I filmed a couple of years ago. It's a 2021, I think it was, and it just didn't feel as special as this at all to me. This is the S-Tronic version, which has a 7-speed dual clutch automatic. It's similar to the DSG gearbox, is another Volkswagen Group product. Climate control only single zone, but you know, I'm sure that's not a problem. One thing I would say is that although the door cards are better than in the sort of Fabias and the Polos and things like that, they're still a little bit austere for me. There's not any fabric on here, which is sort of a shame really, because the rest of it feels good. There's the sort of button for if you're going to tow it, automatic lights on this car, I think maybe auto wipers as well. Cruise control is down there on a separate stalk, very sort of Audi, as opposed to the Volkswagen things that if you had cruise control would go on here. So it's a nice interior. It feels like there's plenty of space in here. Got cup holders in there. Aux in is sort of buried down there, and then the cigarette lighter. Yeah, normal handbrake. The only thing I'm missing is a centre armrest. I'm not so keen on them, but it means there's no sort of storage cubby, which is a shame. Right, can we close the door actually before I get soaking wet and have a look at the screen here? Okay, so we closed the door. It's still sort of beeping at me for some reason. I think this button here. There we go. Vehicle information. Okay, is this there? I think we might have to start it. So if we can do that with one hand. There we go. No problem. Hopefully the stereo won't come on. Muted. Excellent. Good. If we can clear this like service juice thing. That's annoying, isn't it? So if we go that way, oh, there we go. Radio FM, automatic connection is active. If we go up and down in here, yeah, there's the fuel economy figures and everything like that. Only 29 miles per gallon. That's not good, is it? Mind you, it depends how it's been driven, doesn't it? It's a second trip computer. I think that's basically all there is to it for now. There's not much else to sort of say. There's a sort of list here, source list, medium wave, long wave, SD, and then aux and everything, and Bluetooth's not connected. That seems simpler, doesn't it? Yeah. I mean, it's a bit sort of dark in here, but at least the headlining is actually a light one. I like the fact we've got a contrasting seats in here. And if we go sort of right back to the start, can we just sort of get rid of all this stuff? It's only done 42,000 miles. superb. Steering column adjustment. It actually goes in and out as well as up and down, which I don't think you got on the Polos from memory. Yeah, fantastic. Let's turn her off for a second. So, there's a nice big first aid kit in there. That's also, I think, a chilled glove box in there, which is good. Unlike some of the other cars based on its design, right, the Seat Toledo we used to have, which is partly based on the same chassis as the rears is different, but the front suspension is the same. You actually get a single shot CD player here as well, and yeah, this Infotainment, as I said, is completely bespoke. In fact, we might just take a look at that whilst we're here. If we go back, there we go. We can sort of cycle between things. This is actually quite simple to use. That's just these buttons here. You know, there's back, and there's this, and that's sort of it. We can go back from there. Information up there. Traffic reports, don't really need those, do we? No sat-nav in here, but that's okay. But he wants a 2014 sat-nav anyway. So audio sort of selected. Tone, we can adjust various things in there. Yeah, it is quite nice and simple. This, you don't need to sort of take your eyes too far off things and fiddle with a touchscreen. It's all here. It's quite a small screen, but you know, I quite enjoy this actually. It's better than a lot of the systems from the time that I've used. Okay, let's have a seat in the back, shall we? So, yeah, weather's turned nasty for some reason. Just think that this boat, Sportback model, which is the more practical of the two, the 5 doors as opposed to 3, you don't get a seat in the middle. You get some cup holders and things. Headroom it's okay. It's not the most I've ever had. Legroom is, again, okay. It's sort of similar to the Mark 5 Polo, which is not a surprise because that's what they are. I think the Fabia might be similar to this as well. Yeah, no soft touch door cards at the back. That's not really a surprise for a car like this, is it? But it does feel just really, really nice. You feel like you are paying a little bit more for this as opposed to the other cars from the platform. It's got some rear door bin, that's good. 2 mat pockets, that's not a given on a car like this. And electric rear windows. That's where, well, I suppose, the sort of centre armrest for the driver and passenger would be. Of course, it's not present on this car because it's maybe too low down in the trim hierarchy for that, but there we go. Right, let's take a look at the boot, shall we? So, we've got parking sensors on this particular car. It's handy. The boot volume is actually a little bit less than a Polo. Polo of this time would be about, I think it was 275 or 285 litres. This is about 270, but it's not too far off. I suppose we get a spare tyre in there at some point. I don't think this particular car has it. There was inserts out as well and lower the boot floor because this is just the height one. Actually, this car is in very clean condition. The only thing, as I would say, is that these boot lights don't seem to be working. Unusual here, we've got these lights that are for emergency use. European Union law requires that you don't have kind of all the lights that move with the bodywork, as in this case for tailgates, so you need to have a separate set of lights underneath here to comply with regulations. I think it's if you're like parked on the side of the road at night or something, then the lights are still functioning, which is sensible, I suppose. Yeah, the profile of the car is nice. It's a neat looking car, this. It's a handsome design. Facelifted ones, in my opinion, look even better, but this is a pre-facelift one. Right, let's take a look at the engine, shall we? So underneath here, very familiar engine to anyone who's been in a Volkswagen Group car over the last 15 years. It's a 1.4 with 138 horsepower in this particular application. There were 3 other 1.4s. This is the 138, which has a cam belt in it. The later 148 brake horsepower version had a 2-cylinder mode as well. This one is a little bit earlier than that, so it doesn't have that. And here is the Volkswagen Group coolant reservoir. It's been around since the dawn of time, at least. The first generation Audi A3 in 1996 had this, and it continued, I think, like 17, 18 or something. These other cam belts, you need to be aware of that. Also, they could suffer from carbon build-up. these particular 1.4 engines, and the best way to deal with it actually is just change the spark plugs and give it a good run. If you're doing a lot of town mileage, you can actually have problems with that, but yeah, just give them a good run, and you know, there we go. Apart from that, most of the parts are very similar to the Ibiza and the Fabia and the Polo, so not necessarily very high service costs on these. And you can even see the gearbox down there, which is good. It was a good sign for sort of maintenance and things. Excellent. Let's go for another drive. So yeah, I can imagine the sort of person who would want a car like this would be looking at maybe the R50 6th generation Mini against one of these. That's probably the main rival, I'd say. And certainly one of these, it feels a lot more spacious. You can of course get a 3-door version. This is the 5-door, and it just feels very, very nicely put together. And I think these are probably a bit less problematic. We don't have problems with the Prince engine, for example, which we don't talk about on the channel. Obviously you've got to watch the cammed chain on these sort of 1.4s that have that, and also the wet belt on the 1 litre. But yeah, it just feels very refined. I mean, I prefer a 6-speed manual to this S-Tronic, which of course you've got to get serviced as well. It's a serviceable gearbox, but it just feels a cut above all these other cars that were on the market at the time, with the Corsas and, you know, the Clios and things like that. And they were more expensive, but you can see why somebody would just feel that this would be a nice choice. It's sort of very smart now. The design has aged very well. As long as you're aware of some of the issues that we'll talk about sort of right at the end of the video, I don't see why you wouldn't want something like this, if you had the money, of course. I've found a page online that's been written by a friend of the channel, Mike Humble, for parkers, and we're just going to talk very briefly about some common faults with the first generation Audi A1. First of all is the timing chain. It's on the 120, 122, 182 brake horsepower 1.4 engines. The 130, 148 and brake horsepower engines are actually a cam belt like this one. The timing chains, particularly on the 182s, are quite problematic. Also, the turbochargers can fail. There are some electrical faults. The suspension can be noisy. This one's fine. People who upgraded the headlamps, not a great idea. There also can be connectivity issues with this multimedia system. Sometimes the rear seats can suffer from cigarette burns for some reason. One thing I didn't realise actually before I looked at this car was the facelifted cars have the option of adjustable dampers. This obviously is a pre-facelift car, so it doesn't have that. Trim levels on this, so quite a few of them, have the SE, the Sport and the S-Line, which are the standard ones, and then the Amplified Edition, the Black Edition Nav, the Contrast Edition Plus, I don't know what happened to the Contrast Edition Normal, the S-Line Nav, the S-Line Style Edition, the S1 Nav, the S1 Competition, the S1 Competition Nav, and the Sport Nav, and then the very, very rare Quattro, which had 252 horsepower. So viewers, should you consider a first generation Audi A1 if your hard-earned budget is between £1,000 and £5,000? Well, this car apparently is worth about £8,000. I didn't quite realise that before I saw it. They hold their value really, really well, and I think they're sort of worth it, perhaps. I mean, I don't think the Minis of the sort of R56 generation are particularly good. I think these are a better car, personally. Much rather one of these, but obviously the Seat Ibizas and the Skoda Fabias and the Volkswagen Polos that these are actually based on as well, they are a lot cheaper for the sort of same amount of engineering. So it depends whether you want this this look and this sort of superior level of build quality and things like that, or you can live with a harder plastic and perhaps kind of sort of rougher edges. But you know, as always, it's up to you. Anyway, thank you ever so much indeed once again for watching. Thank you to Eubanks Auctions for allowing me to drive this car today. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like this video, comment below. We shall see you again very soon for some more reasonably priced motoring.